General Hospital spoilers reveal that Brad's sudden departure from General Hospital is not merely a retreat after a series of controversies and past mistakes. Instead, it is gradually unveiling one of the darkest and most haunting secrets simmering beneath the surface of Port Charles. Now, as the dust begins to settle, a terrifying truth is coming to light. Drew, who had openly opposed Brad and was seen as a moral cornerstone, turns out to be the one who secretly transferred a massive sum of money to Brad, enough to make him disappear, stay silent, and never look back. That money wasn't just a bribe, it was a calculated, deliberate move in a larger game of power and deceit that Drew is meticulously controlling. The confirmation of the financial connection between Drew and Brad has triggered a dangerous chain reaction, no longer merely courtroom shifts, but a psychological earthquake where the lines between friend and foe, right and wrong, have completely blurred. A man like Drew, long seen as a trustworthy pillar, someone who fought for justice, is now revealed to be using money and influence to cover up wrongdoing, force others to bear the blame, and silence those who could expose the truth. Sources confirm that the payout wasn't just hush money, but a strategic maneuver to remove Brad from the chessboard of dangerous witnesses, before he had a chance to say anything that could destroy the entire moral facade Drew has built. And so, one of the newest shocks isn't in what Brad left behind, but in how he left, quietly, financially secure, and without offering a single explanation. This has put immense pressure on everyone connected to the case, especially Willow, Carly, Diane, and Portia. Each of them is being pulled into a vortex of suspicion, where anyone could now be an accomplice, someone who knew but stayed silent, or worse, someone who enabled money laundering, covered up crimes, and manipulated witnesses. Port Charles is no longer a town of temporary justice, it has become a battlefield where every small move could lead to a domino collapse. The most chilling thought is not just Brad's disappearance, but the realization that his handshake with Drew might be just the tip of the iceberg. One of the growing threats is that someone like Brad, once seen as the weakest link, may hold truths powerful enough to destroy the entire false structure upheld by those in power. His vanishing act, confirmed to be funded by Drew, raises a chilling question. Was Brad paid to stay quiet, or does he now hold the key to a chain of secrets that have never before been revealed? And what if he comes back, not to apologize, but to confront? This haunting shift is becoming a constant fear at GH. Rumors swirl in every hallway, every conversation is laced with doubt, and every previously buried file is suddenly being hunted. Drew, trying to remain composed in the eye of the storm, has now become the one under the most scrutiny. The pressure from Diane, from the judges, and even from those who once stood by him is mounting by the hour. If any document related to that payout is leaked, if any recording, receipt, or testimony from Brad emerges, Drew's entire defense will collapse, dragging down everyone who joined him in his calculated schemes. And so once again, Port Charles stands at the brink of a new madness, where truth and lies blend, where money becomes a weapon, and where one man's silence could either uphold or destroy an entire empire. Brad may have left, but what he left behind, especially that envelope of secrets and the cost tied to it, remains, waiting to erupt. And when it does, the shock will no longer be speculative. It will be real, brutal, raw, and irreversible. Brad's storyline in General Hospital may have officially ended with his exit from Port Charles, but the consequences of his departure mark the beginning of a new wave of chaos, where relationships fracture, trust is broken, and buried secrets begin to surface. Brad, once a controversial lab technician and the center of anger, disappointment, and pity, is now a name spoken with caution and concern. No longer present in the hospital, no longer stepping into medical or emotional crises, Brad is gone, but not from the minds of those who loved, hated, trusted, or betrayed him. His breakup with Lucas left a deep fracture in both of them, but for Brad, it was a final, devastating blow that pushed him into a state of emotional disorientation with no anchor to stay in town. The relationship he once saw as his last chance at redemption could not withstand the weight of the past. Lucas, though once forgiving and open-hearted, couldn't ignore that Brad always carried the dangerous fallout of bad decisions, most notably, the wily baby switch that sent shockwaves through the entire town. Lucas's eventual departure with Marco only deepened Brad's sense of isolation. And when his heart finally broke, Brad didn't choose to stay and fix things. He chose to disappear, with a large sum of money, later confirmed to be provided by Drew. And that was the ignition point for a new truth. Drew, the man who once claimed to fight for justice and integrity, was the very person who bought off Brad with a significant payout to ensure his silence and complete withdrawal from Port Charles. This act was shocking not just for its secrecy, but because it exposed the dark side of Drew's decisions, a man previously praised for his consistency and integrity. Brad's decision to leave wasn't just an escape from trouble, it was the result of a carefully calculated agreement. A step in a broader strategy Drew is quietly executing to strengthen his position and eliminate any risky link that could expose the behind-the-scenes plans he's pursuing. This has triggered a wild reshuffling of power and relationships at GH. Carly, Diane, Willow, and even Portia are beginning to feel the instability creeping into the once solid ties they relied on. When someone like Brad, once deemed to have nothing left to lose, becomes the keeper of enormous secrets and is paid into silence, it reveals just how afraid the real power players are of what he knows. And so, Brad's departure doesn't close a chapter, it opens a wave of unanswered questions. What is Drew hiding that he would go this far to silence Brad? Has Brad really severed all ties? Or does he still hold something that could collapse the entire defensive wall Drew and his allies are building? Lucas, once Brad's emotional anchor, cannot escape the fallout of this retreat. Though he's moved on with Marco, Lucas still wrestles with doubts and regrets over what he left behind. His love for Brad, though fractured, left a mark. And knowing that Brad didn't leave in resignation but was pushed out of the game leaves Lucas uneasy with his new life. The sense that something is being hidden, that there are truths he's not being told, makes Lucas, a man who once firmly believed in morality, feel lost in the very world he thought was just. This new mess begins with silence. When Brad vanished, he left no goodbye, no message, no room for amends. He left a void, and in that void, Port Charles has begun to feel the absence of a crucial piece of the puzzle. Everyone is now asking, will Brad return? Will the truth about the money be revealed? And if it is, who will be the first to fall because of what Brad may bring back? One of the most disturbing shifts happening now is with Drew himself, once a trusted leader, now the center of suspicion. He was a figure of guidance and faith, but is now drowning in cold calculations, morally questionable choices, and secret deals that, once exposed, could obliterate his career and reputation. Brad's quiet, unexpected yet thoroughly calculated exit has become a warning bell. A new chapter has begun, not of redemption, but of reckoning, storms, and secrets that can no longer stay buried. Once again, Port Charles is entering deeper, darker waters, and no one, not even those who seem to have won, can be certain they'll still be standing when the undercurrents rise. Brad's departure from Port Charles is not just the final punctuation mark for a controversial character in General Hospital, but a seismic turning point in the underworld, a realm where power, threats, and loyalty are weighed not by emotions, but by strategy. For Selena Wu, the iron-willed woman who built her underground empire on fear, rumor, and absolute control, this loss is more than just the absence of a collaborator. It is a crack in a carefully constructed system of power years in the making. Brad, often seen as a half-measure, not cold-blooded enough to be a true right hand, but not innocent enough to be deemed harmless, was still a pawn Selena once trusted. He wasn't just the executor of discreet orders within the hospital, but a critical link between the legitimate world and the shadowy realm Selena manipulated from behind the scenes. Now, with Brad gone from town, carrying a large sum of money confirmed to be tied to Drew, Selena finds herself disoriented, a rare sensation for someone like her. Until now, Selena has always been the one moving the pieces, never allowing others to act first. But this time, she's forced to face a chilling truth. Brad left not as someone under control, but as someone fully aware of what he knows, and willing to take that knowledge beyond her reach. This isn't just betrayal. It's a silent declaration that Selena Wu's power is no longer absolute. The system starts to shift. Other links in her network begin to waver. Those who once bowed to Selena out of fear, fueled by what Brad might uncover or expose, are now asking if they're still being watched. Is Selena still the force she once was? Able to manipulate medical, legal, and media systems with ease? It is this uncertainty that truly makes her lose control. She has no way to measure the damage Brad may have caused, because she doesn't know who he's talked to, what he's backed up, or in what form he might return. Brad didn't leave in defeat, he left armed with something everyone can feel, secrets. And in that chaos, Selena begins to act, no longer with her usual cold precision, but with the survival instincts of someone who senses her reign could collapse at any moment. She orders a complete restructuring of her network. Former loyalists are forced to prove their worth again. Longtime operatives are eliminated without warning at the slightest sign of disloyalty. She tries to build a new layer of defense. But that very act exposes her inner fear. Selena knows that if Brad returns, or if what he knows leaks, no one, not even her, will be safe. She could lose her power, even her life. If former enemies gain strong enough evidence to bring her down legally or in the underworld. One of the greatest shocks to Selena isn't Brad's actions, but the way he left. No threats. No parting message. His silence doesn't signal the end, but the beginning of a slow-burning dread. Anything could be unleashed at any time. And so, Selena, once the master manipulator of others' fear, now lives in constant anxiety. Every time Brad's name comes up in an unmonitored conversation, every time an unusual news item surfaces, every time a stranger walks into a clinic or courtroom, Selena's heart tightens with a single fear. Is this a sign Brad is back? What Port Charles is witnessing is no longer the story of a failed lab technician who lost in love and career. It's the story of someone once dismissed, cast into darkness, now becoming the one who holds the fate of one of the city's most powerful figures. The fallout from Brad's exit doesn't need confirmation through action, it's already present in every anxious glance from Selena, in every hasty attempt to reassert control, and in every whisper among rival factions. Everyone is watching. Everyone is waiting. And Selena Wu, who once feared no one, must now learn to fear the one thing she never accounted for. What Brad knows, and when he will use it. When that moment comes, Port Charles will never be the same. And Selena Wu will pay the price for underestimating a pawn she once thought worthless, who may now be the greatest threat of her life. Parry Shen has officially confirmed that he will not be renewing his contract with General Hospital, marking the end of a decade-long journey for the character Brad Cooper, a figure both loved and hated, scorned and sympathized with by fans. But the truth is, Parry Shen's departure isn't just the conclusion of a role, it's the beginning of a chaotic chain reaction, where the void Brad leaves behind is starting to unravel the already fragile structure of the GH underworld. His exit opens the door to a turbulent phase of realignment, where behind-the-scenes calculations must be redrawn, and those who once relied on Brad's presence must now face the fallout of losing an irreplaceable piece. There's no denying that Brad, despite his many mistakes and controversies, was a central figure in countless intricate plotlines. He served as a connector between the mafia, the medical field, families, and even the legal system in Port Charles. His departure is not just the loss of a secondary character, it's the loss of a vital artery in the secret power network behind the main stage. Restructuring is inevitable, but it's the haste of these adjustments that's triggering a wave of shocks. All the control that once existed around Brad, using him as a tool of manipulation, is now being scorched by a larger fear, that without Brad here, no one can guarantee the secrets he held will stay buried. Selena Wu is the first to feel the weight of this shift. Without Brad by her side, her covert operations begin to tremble. But she's not the only one facing consequences. Drew, the man who handed Brad a large sum of money to ensure his silence, now faces a significant threat, that the secret deal will be uncovered, that the truth will be exposed, and that an entire system built on concealment and exchange will collapse, because of one man who left without fanfare, but carried deadly puzzle pieces with him. What makes this all the more unhinged is that no one knows what comes next. Brad's departure leaves a void that cannot be filled, not just in the storylines, but in the psyches of those who once walked beside him. Lucas may be starting a new chapter, but has he truly let go of the past? Carly, once skeptical of Brad, now feels uneasy with a witness like him out of reach. And Portia, who once manipulated Brad in shady medical plots, now lives in fear that one day her name might surface in a confession or leaked file. This isn't just a narrative shift. It's a looming disaster. Brad's absence forces every character to reshuffle their hand, but this time, there's no time to prepare, no backup plans. All prior strategies become meaningless when the link between tiers of power is severed. And in that vacuum, paranoia is growing. What did people say to Brad before he left? What recordings might he have? What did he leave in secured systems? Emails? Messages? Diaries? These questions turn everyone, Selena, Drew, Portia, even seemingly innocent bystanders, into targets of the very suspicion they once projected onto Brad. Parry Shen's departure is a shock even the creative team must confront. They're now scrambling to rewrite scripts and patch narrative holes, but at the same time, his exit has created a rare opportunity to elevate the tension to a whole new level. No one knows if Brad will return in the future. But right now, Port Charles is operating with a gaping hole, and that hole is the weakness that will surface everything that's been buried. The trouble is growing. The anxiety is spreading. And for every character who ever crossed paths with Brad, every secret he ever kept, there's now a ticking time bomb, silent, still, but deadly. Once what Brad knows begins to leak, directly or indirectly, General Hospital will never be the same. The disaster won't come from Brad himself, but from the instability he left behind. And one thing is certain, none of them, not even those who thought they'd won, will enjoy the peace they thought they bought with the end of a contract. Selena Wu is at the most dangerous crossroads in her long reign of secrecy in Port Charles's underworld. The loss of Brad, her nephew, whom she once considered a strategic pawn in every plan, is not only a personal loss, but also a devastating blow to the power structure she has carefully built over the years. Brad was not simply a relative, but a key link that allowed her to maintain influence at the hospital, access underground information, and even manipulate sensitive legal situations. Now, with this void, Selena is forced to consider a replacement, a rapid and drastic restructuring. And from the shadows, a new name begins to be mentioned, another member of the Wu family, about to appear to fill the void left by Brad, but with potential even more dangerous and unpredictable. The story of a new ally, a shadowy successor, is not something Selena would bring up lightly. She knows that in her world, loyalty cannot be bought with blood, but must be forged with ruthlessness, wisdom, and absolute secrecy. Therefore, the decision to summon a new member of the Wu family to Port Charles is not just an emergency move, but a declaration that she has not lost control. That her empire will not collapse easily because of the departure of one person. And that the obsession Selena is facing will quickly be transformed into a tool to help her continue to climb the ladder of power. The new person chosen is not like Brad. Not weak. Not torn between morality and scheming, but a character trained in the dark, raised not with the goal of seeking acceptance like Brad did, but with the sole mission of strengthening the family legacy. The appearance of this person not only makes Selena breathe a sigh of relief because she has a new ally, but also shakes the whole of Port Charles. Because unlike Brad, who can be swayed by emotion, the new arrival does not bring concessions or compromises. He or she is here to restore order, but will not hesitate to destroy anyone or anything that stands in the way. The adjustment Selena is making is one of the wildest and most explosive changes yet. She no longer maintains the cautious strategy she once had. Instead, she begins to increase control, tighten connections, expand influence into areas she once left Brad alone. Probing is intense. Old alliances are tested. And opponents, whether Portia, Drew, or anyone who has ever touched Brad, feel the undercurrents pushing closer, stronger, deeper, more dangerous. It is from this point that a new series of disasters begins to unfold. Those who once thought Brad's retreat meant Selena's dominance was waning are now on the defensive as a new Wu hand reaches out. What was once a secret between Brad and the other factions is now open like a war file. Selena no longer hides. She leaves it to her successor to deal with unfinished business. From uncollected debts to threats that Brad had previously been powerless against. And in the process, there is no mercy, no family love, only cold, violent rules. Port Charles, accustomed to the kind of simmering danger Selena brings, now faces a new form of fear, a power that comes not from the cold woman behind the scenes, but from the very person she sent to represent her. Someone younger, untethered to history, unencumbered by complicated relationships, and, most importantly, with no past to explain. That's what makes this new character such a disaster. The absolute cleanliness of a whiteboard of power, where every move is allowed, and consequences are no longer a consideration. With Brad gone, many thought Selena would begin to back down. But the reality is proving otherwise. She doesn't back down, she changes, and it's that change, not Brad, not Drew. Not Carly, that's preparing to burn down the fragile order that's left in Port Charles. A new era is dawning, and in it, the Wu family won't just be a name in the shadows, they'll be in the light. With new powers, and no one knows for sure what will be swept away in this storm.